So what now?
Well, you said you wanted to interview me
Oh, yeah.
about the military and stuff since it's Memorial Day.
That's right.
You and your producer, Panzer.
Oh, yeah. Our producer Panzer. Yeah, he doesn't get paid very well because, well, he gets paid in food, you know.
I think he's satisfied with that.
Yeah, he's satisfied. I mean, he's part German, you know. But so yeah, me and Panzer, or me, I'm going to be interviewing Rachel Blair.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you find, like, why did you want to join the military?
Well, I got a couple reasons. I'll say the first one, partially because I grew up in Warner Robins and it was a big military town. And my dad had been in the service as well in the Air Force, and I just wanted to do something coming from a family that had a lot of military background. A lot of my great uncles and my grandfather were also in World War II.
Hmm.
And so, just had a lot of military history in the family. And to my knowledge, to this day, I'm still the only woman in the family that's ever joined the service. And I really was struggling to try to pay for college. I couldn't get any student loans, and they told me that I really couldn't move forward unless I was independent. And so I was like, okay, well, if I go in the Army, then I'll have a GI Bill that'll help me pay for school. And I wanted my family to be proud of me. I knew my dad would be proud of me, although initially they objected to me going in service. And I also wanted to go in. I think I just wanted to, prove something to myself that I could do it. And I wanted to learn job skills and be a part of something bigger than myself. And then another factor was that I was 14 when 9/11 happened, and I thought that the war was, at the time, I thought the war was justified, and I wanted to serve my country, and that was it.
So what do you think about the war now?
Like the one that was going on when I was in, or in general, or like the new war?
I don't know, like, just what is your perspective on, I guess, both,
Okay, so I would say my perspective's really shifted a lot over the years, the more that I've learned and the more that I experienced. And even what I experienced in the military at the time, there's people down there being wild.
Oh yeah, so sorry about the error there. We have some technical difficulties. But, our producer took care of it.
Thank you, producer Panzer. So, my perspective on the war has really shifted a lot over the years. One, from my experiences when I was serving. And I began to really see that, I can't focus with these retards out here. Oh my gosh.
That's okay, we did good for our first interview.
This interview is not over.
You got him past the first question. I think George is doing. Here, I'll pause it.
Okay. Alright, after rude interruption number 3,
And number 4.
And number 4. Alright, so I would say my perspective on the war has shifted a lot from where it was when it first began. There was a lot of propaganda put out, I would argue, surrounding 9/11, as well as the war on terror, WMDs in Iraq, all those things. And so we were led to believe, we were genuinely under attack from terrorists in the Middle East, and we were told that we had to destroy Saddam Hussein, all these different things, and that we had to go in Afghanistan. Now, my mind is still a bit fuzzy on why exactly we went into Afghanistan. It just seemed the way it was portrayed was that it was just something that we had to do to finish the first thing that we were doing in Iraq, and that we had to get Al-Qaeda and all these things. Well, it became apparent to me, even, I would say, in basic training, but also when I was training to be a combat medic, that a lot of the purposes and reasons for the war didn't really match with what we appeared to be doing. And I experienced the 2008 presidential election when I was in, and could see there was a very sharp turn. Even within the military, there was a divide between people who I would argue were somewhat leaning communistic, and others who were kind of a part of the neocon machine, and then still others who were kind of like myself, few and far between, who just kind of felt like, I can see what's happening. Why can no one else see what's happening?
Yeah.
And so because of that, I would argue, once I got back from training, different things, and especially because of some of my experiences, became very disillusioned with the military and what we were doing. And just over the years, as I saw friends of mine get killed and people take their life when they would come back, and just watch what people went through, and the more I learned about what was really going on, the less I was, in favor of any of it. And, just kind of wondered, what was it all for? Because I would argue a primary difference between the war with Iraq and Afghanistan versus, say, what they did in World War II is that nobody felt like that we really had a actual victory. Nobody really won. Nobody really lost. And then at the end of the day, when they did the Afghanistan withdrawal, that was extremely painful for everybody who had served during that time. Just watching the way that played out, it just made it feel like all the hard work was, for what? And, as far as how that gives me perspective on the current war in Iran, obviously I was completely opposed to it from before the onset. We didn't need another endless 20-year war in the Middle East. We don't need to lose more American lives. And the fact that it appears that many of the military objectives are things that were actually the way they were before the war started, definitely makes it feel like it's just a huge, huge mistake. Colossal mistake, to put it more succinctly.
So, what would you say that, while in the service, did you ever, come across anything like being flown out to a foreign place, or to another state that you've never been to?
Yeah, I didn't end up deploying overseas because I was injured whenever I was in the service.
What were you injured by?
Well, there were two different events that happened. One of them I'm willing to talk about here. In December of 2008, we were doing what's known as sticks training and our combat medic training. So this was kind of like the capstone to finish combat medic school. And I was stationed in San Antonio at Fort Sam, and they drove us out to a place called Fort Bullis, or Camp Bullis. Yeah, Camp Bullis. And we were doing our training out there, but it was extraordinarily cold.
Cooked.
And yeah.
Frozen.
We were frozen meals, not cooked meals.
So where were you?
This was in Camp Bullis, Texas, outside of San Antonio.
Bullis, Texas.
Outside of San Antonio, Texas. So I had never been to Texas before when I went there.
You wouldn't think that Texas would be cold.
Oh, it is very cold, and because there's very little trees in those areas, the wind is like a biting cold. It is a deep. Later in life, I lived in South Dakota, and I have even experienced negative 20-degree weather. I am not sure that my experiences in South Dakota compared with how cold it felt. How cold it felt. Like, I remember it being so cold in the morning. We would be standing in formation, and I would just feel like I had knives in my feet, in my boots. I couldn't feel my feet. I couldn't feel any part of my body. It just felt like I had knives.
One day I should go out there.
Because it was just so cold. But beside the point of how cold it was, they had these really terrible heating systems in the tents at night. And they didn't have any kind of good air filtration. They were just essentially recycling dirt and dust. The air quality was worse inside of the tents than outside of the tents. That made a real recipe for disaster, because very quickly, I think after about the first week, I started developing pneumonia, and I went to go see the doctor, and they told me, oh, you have bronchitis. And I had had bronchitis many times in my life, and I knew that this was something different. I'm like, I don't think I just have bronchitis. I think it's something worse. Well, anyway, they gave me some antibiotics and sent me on my way. And I was still trying to complete my military training while I had pneumonia. And I remember the day before I ended up collapsing in formation, that I was hauling litters up a hill, and I could feel the liquid in my lungs just like rising up, and I felt like I had no space in my lungs. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this. And at some point, I think for about 2 days, I think I was very disoriented. I just kind of somehow made it through. I don't really remember very clearly. But one of the mornings, we got up for formation, and I felt very, very cold. And as we're standing there, all of a sudden, I was doing everything in my mind, just stay standing. And then I just couldn't. It was like, you ever know what it feels like when you're falling in a dream?
Yeah.
It felt like that, because it almost didn't feel real. But anyway, so then I collapsed in formation. They ran over to me. I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. And then one sergeant agreed. Another one told me that I better not be lying about being sick, or she was going to put me out of the Army. She was a real gem. She was a really great person. Her name was Sergeant Garcia. She had red hair and glasses and acted like she was some kind of drill sergeant, but
Never trust the redheads.
Never trust the gingers, man. No soul. No soul at all. So anyway, I got sent, and here was the part that made me mad, is I was like, I might be dying. And they sent another soldier with me. Her last name was Wooten. And I couldn't stand her. She was such a
Pig.
Pig, yes. She was a pig. With a capital P. And they sent her with me, and I thought, I gotta die. This is who I gotta. This is gonna be the last person that I see. I'm not happy about this. So they didn't have any real way to call for an ambulance, and I don't think they took it that seriously. So they had an old Vietnam era ambulance there. Its top speed is 40 miles an hour. They threw me in the back with an old roll of carpet.
Oh, wow.
And it took 2.5 hours for them to get to the hospital. Now, when I got to hospital, keep in mind, I had not bathed in 2 weeks. I was looking like the most homeless and nasty. I felt disgusting. I'm like, Lord, if I'm going to die, can I please get a shower first? Something. Like, please don't let me die dirty. Anyway, so we got there to the hospital. They took my vitals, and then they very quickly realized I was in septic shock. And so then they took me back in the hospital. And I then found out that they were trying to prevent me from dying. And that was pretty crazy. I ended up spending 12 days in the hospital.
On the 12th day of Christmas.
No, it was just before Christmas. They actually released me from the hospital earlier than they wanted to. They actually wanted to keep me for another week. But they didn't, because they wanted to try to send me home in time for Christmas. So anyway, what ended up happening was, then when I got sent back home to Georgia for Christmas, I ended up back in the hospital within days of coming back. But anyway, it was a crazy experience. And you know, they checked my dog tag to make sure my religion was correct, and they were getting a priest and everything. And I'm like, they're like, well, what religion are you? And I'm Christian. And they're like, what kind of, like, I guess Baptist? I didn't really know what to associate with, so I just said Baptist. And they didn't have anybody Baptist, so they sent me somebody Catholic, I think, or maybe even Methodist. I don't really know. All I know is they came in some weird robes.
At least it wasn't a Mormon.
You know, I don't know. All I know is that they sent someone in, and they came to talk to me, and my main prerogative, because keep in mind, I was not in the best state of mind, was to share the gospel with them and to make sure that the preacher that they sent me was actually saved. I was trying to help the preacher. And, you know, I said, you know, that I felt okay. I felt at peace, you know, that if I, you know, prayed that I was going to make it out of there, but if for some reason I didn't, I felt, you know, at peace with my life. And you want to know what's weird? In some ways, even though I was only 22, I almost feel like, it's going to sound crazy, I think in some ways it's almost like when you're young like that in the military, I think death might feel easier than when you're old. Obviously, I haven't experienced it being older, but
well, I mean, death is
and
only
still
one,
being alive, but I'm just saying
there's
that
only one train.
Well, I guess I'm just saying that it's like, it's crazy that you can be that young and be in that state of mind of feeling like, you know, Lord, I'm at peace with it. I feel like I've lived a full life. And then the older you get, sometimes you're like, I don't know, Lord, I don't feel like I'm done yet. Like, that's, it's funny how that happens. But, yeah, it was a crazy experience and caused me lifelong issues, but yeah, that's what happened. That's how I got injured, and I know that was a very long story. Kind of went off on a jag, but does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh, and I did basic training in Fort Jackson. South Carolina, and which was a state I had been to. And then I did my training in Texas, in San Antonio, which was somewhere I had not been to. Now I answered both your questions.
All right. So now, I have one last question. If you
I'm sorry, I swallowed some water wrong. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So if you had to either go into the service or really just, just went now, like, let's just say if you were born in, like, 2005 or something like that, and you went into the service, what would you, like, what would your perspective be? And, like, like, if you were, 21 or 22, now, like, in 2026, would you still go, and what would your perspective be on it, if, like, retaining all the information you have?
Okay, so in other words, what would I do now, and what would I do differently? Is that kind of what you're asking? Okay. I mean, I would say I would still want to go in the military, but I would have chose something different. Knowing what I know now, you want to honestly know what I would have done? I would have went in the Coast Guard, and I would have wanted to be a rescue diver. I think that would have been the most awesome, cool job, because you get to be a medic, but you get to do a lot of medical evacuation, and you also get to become, do a lot of ocean, like sea training and different stuff, and I think that would have been super cool.
Ocean's scary.
Yeah, well, probably not as scary as waiting for help in the ocean. You're the person going to help them. Or maybe I would have went in and been like an intelligence officer or something. But either way, I would have went in the Coast Guard. Coast Guard is so underrated. I think it would have been amazing. I would have mostly pretty much stayed stateside, at a port or something. And I just think it would have been an amazing experience. So, but I mean, as far as the trajectory of the world and stuff, I definitely wouldn't have went in the Army if I could redo it. I think the Air Force is good. I like the Air Force and the Coast Guard. Not a big fan of the Navy. Not a big. It's not that I dislike the Navy. I think the Navy is good. It's just I'm kind of claustrophobic, so the idea of being on like a submarine, out on a ship for months and months. Because see, the Coast Guard, they don't go out for like months and months and months on the water. They don't really do it. No, it's a little trip. We out there looking for somebody, then we coming back. That's a little different. Or we're out there policing people. It's a little different. But I mean, I would think it's still actually a really good thing to go in. If anything, I would argue that the current military standards, like their physical standards and stuff, are actually better than what they were when I went in. Now, the standards, they were good. They were pretty good whenever I went in. But then, within a few years of me going in, they started going, like, the Army, the military in general, started taking a real downturn as far as, people that were recruited, everything else. I think they have better incentives now. I think that the state of the military is better. The only thing that I would say is really that much different, or actually it's not different at all, it's really the same, is you just have to understand that unfortunately the Department of Defense, Department of War, and therefore the armed forces are in the business of war, and that whether or not you end up going and fighting in it, it is the machine which keeps the fires burning. And as long as you understand that, as long as you understand that, you got to make some personal sacrifices to get the training and experience you need, and I would say it's worth it. I mean, I think the friendships that I made, definitely worth it. And I wish that there's a lot of people I wish I could see again.
Are there any, of your service in the military? Are there any, just sort of outrageous or crazy things that happen, and then also like funny things and things like that?
I'll try to tell 2 short stories.
Okay.
So, one of the most crazy things that I saw happen. I saw a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because there are some nutty people in the military, let me tell you. Saw some wild things. But one of the things that has stuck with me the most that was unexpected was, like I said, I was in training during the 2008 election. And when Obama won the election, the people who had voted for him rioted in the barracks, and there was rioting all over the base.
What?
Yes, there was rioting.
Were they
This
just
is on a
random
military...
people or people
No, these were
enlisted?
soldiers. These were soldiers.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I'm saying.
That's insane.
Now, that being said, well, who knows what happened? I know what stuff happened on the streets and stuff too, but I'm just saying from just my little inside perspective, they started turning over lockers and flipping over beds and it was like, why are you doing this?
Why?
This is how you're celebrating now. And all I could think.
Wait, that's how they were celebrating?
Yeah, that's how they were celebrating.
They weren't mad at that Barack Obama?
No, they were happy.
They were like, oh, we're going to flip over everything.
Yeah, they were happy, but their way of displaying their joy, their communistic sense of satisfaction, was by destroying things. That's why you need to understand. These communists that are out doing things today and burning things down and destroying things.
That makes them happy.
Yeah, they're not angry.
Yeah.
That is what is making them feel good. And that's what people don't understand. They think, oh, I must be so angry, I'm out destroying. No, they are enjoying it. Same thing when you see people come into a store and steal a bunch of stuff. No, they are enjoying doing that.
I mean, I guess it's kind of like they probably get the thrill of satisfaction by destroying.
Well, I think it was the satisfaction of rebellion
and things like that. I think it's the satisfaction of rebelling, and also too just really just going feral.
Yeah, they were just going feral. I was really surprised. I thought when I joined the military that it would be a lot of patriotic people, but I was wrong. Some of them were very patriotic and had some sense, but there was a whole lot of people that literally fell for whatever the recruiter told them, and all they heard was free check. Except it's not a free check. You're there, you're supposed to work, you have to earn, but all they heard was free health care and a monthly check. And
that's
so
all
they
heard.
They literally, that's all they heard.
And then they got sort of stuck.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't say stuck because they were enjoying it.
Well, all I'm saying is there are some people that if you had to be in combat, there are some people you would want with you, and there are some people that you would be like, I am definitely going to get killed. I am definitely going to get killed because of this person. So, thankfully, those are a little more few and far between. There is a term for that. There's a couple terms. I'll give you the PG version. It's called a blue falcon. That's what they call those people. Blue falcon.
And
sorry, there was another question. Oh, you asked me about something funny that happened? Okay, so I don't know if this is objectively funny, but it's pretty funny to me now, was when I was in basic training, we had one time when we went out on the range, and when they would bring out the MREs, like the meals for everybody, they only brought exactly enough for each soldier to have one meal. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody was issued one meal, but apparently somebody stuck their hand in the cookie jar and took a couple extra. And so then there were a couple soldiers who did not have anything to eat.
Taking one back to home, or or really just being a big bag.
They just being a big bag. Well, anyway, I don't really know why exactly, because I already didn't like the MREs. Like, I just barely ate anything out of them.
Yeah, who would want to eat more?
I did not want a second, because I barely wanted the first, and I usually ended up with one I didn't like. The nastiest one was called Western omelet. It was terrible.
Oh, no.
It's not a Western omelet. Like, it looked like puke in a bag, and they called it an egg. But anyway, so somehow or another, drill sergeants are like, oh, somebody stole something, who did it? For whatever reason, some of the people within the company or platoon actually named me and a couple other people as being the ones that must have stolen it. Well, it was me, a guy named Robinson, and a guy named Snell. Now, Snell was like a linebacker football player. I think they just picked him out because he was big.
Oh.
Robinson, I don't really know why they said he did it, but they just tried to say he did. And then me, which it looked comical because it's like...
Well,
I weighed
small.
I weighed 117 pounds.
Why would
I steal extra MREs? Well, anyway, so Drill Sergeant Smith ended up calling up me and Robinson and Snell in front of I almost said the whole congregation, but the whole company. That's how long I've been out. In front of the whole company. And he said, now, I've called these 3 people up here because y'all have accused them of stealing. He's like, now I happen to know that these 3 individuals that y'all named, or some of y'all named as being the ones that stole, are actually the 3 individuals I happen to know have enough integrity that they would never steal an extra meal. So then me, Robinson, and Snell were taken to a nice air-conditioned office, which I can tell you, in August in South Carolina at Fort Jackson, that was a real luxury. And we were given some trail mix bars. I thought that was the best thing I'd ever eaten in my life, was being air-conditioned. And then they told us we had to clean the office, but I didn't care. That was the happiest. And then everybody else that got left behind, they got smoked for 2.5 hours on the company CTA.
Well, what about the people that couldn't get smoked?
There was nobody that couldn't get smoked, Grayson.
Yeah, but what if they couldn't do what they wanted them to do?
I reckon they'd just die.
Really?
Or pass out. I mean, they could pass out. They have a medic come look at them.
Yeah, but what if they ordered them to do 50 or 100 push-ups?
Well...
And they couldn't do those push-ups.
I guess they'd be falling out. And then they would probably punish them by making them do something else. Or making them do make up for the push-ups later. Well, they just keep on going, I reckon, until they fell out. And had to call a medic.
Wow. So they just basically exhaust you till you...
I know you said it's called smoking them for 2.5 hours. And my friend McGonigal, I felt she was my best friend in basic training, and I felt really bad for her because I felt like she didn't deserve to have to go through that, because she actually was one of the ones who stood up for me and said, no, my nickname was Candles, and they were like, Candles wouldn't do that. That's actually, I don't know if I ever told you that. That's what I got called in the military, was Candles.
Candles.
That's what they called me. They called me Candles.
Well, if I ever go into the military or the Air Force, I'll make sure they call me Randy.
You don't ask for a nickname, they just give it to you.
Well, I don't care. It's going to be Randy. And if they want to give me a bad nickname, then I'll start calling them a bad nickname too.
Conclude our interview?
Yeah, I think we've, it's been pretty good, you know. So, I think we're going to wrap everything up. That was a crazy stories you shared, you know.
Well, if you ever want to do another interview, you know where to find me. I got plenty more stories to share, and I'm glad that you asked questions and wanted to listen to them.
I know where to find
Thank you, Grayson. I was honored to be interviewed by you. Okay, I don't know how to do that handshake, but okay. Wow, my hands are all sweaty. Thanks to you and your producer, Panzer. I appreciate both of you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.